I suppose when people in this building sat down to devise a political programme called Hearts and Minds, they were putting their faith in two assumptions. One was that conflict in Northern Ireland, the only politics we had then, was in the hearts and minds of the people. The worst violence on the streets in some way emerged out of the thoughts and feelings of not just those who planted the bombs and shot their neighbours, but of us all. And the other assumption was that hearts and minds change. Unless they believed that, there was really nothing to talk about. Well, everything since then has changed. The politics of deadlock turned into the politics of peace processing, which often seemed just as deadlocked as the old system, but with fewer people getting killed. And week after week, and month after month, and year after year, you saw them in the Hearts and Minds studio, Trimble and Adams, and Paisley and Hume, and Mallon and Alderdice and Robinson. And how many times did you watch those debates and think they were like wind-up dolls repeating themselves? Yet compare the hearts and minds of people and politicians now with those then, and it seems almost impossible to recover the hard passions and the intractable ideas of then. We're not quite beyond people making excuses for the killings of the past, but that's the old contest over history and who tells it best. Were the quarrels of today to turn murderous, few would make excuses for that. Hearts and minds do change. One of the things that would have been hardest to foresee during the worst of the Troubles is how quickly the hatred and suspicion would dissipate, just as it was impossible to foresee before the Troubles how vicious they would become, how long they would last. Our hearts respond differently now. Far from being emotional about politics, people now seem cynical. It is dreadful how commonly they sneer at the ministers of the executive and repeat the cliché that they're coining it, which isn't fair. I believe that Sammy Wilson and Arlene Foster and Alex Maskey and Alex Atwood and Stephen Farry and most of them up there are essentially decent people. And those among them who drove the conflict and survived to make politics still must know in their hearts and minds that the world of today is unlike anything they conceived of at the start. The political violence was initiated during the Cold War, and for some even explained by it. Ian Paisley really did believe that the Catholic Church was behind the IRA. Colonel Gaddafi armed the IRA in hopes that Ireland might be a European Cuba. South Africa armed loyalists in defence of apartheid. That wasn't a day when a gay man could go to jail for having sex. So much of that old passion seems stupid. Even recently revered principles are shaky, like the idea that we're all better off if house prices keep going up and up. Which makes me wonder how many of the ideas which have currency now will seem mad to another generation. What we have learnt is that hearts and minds are fluid. They do change, and demonstrably in the lifetime of this programme. It was well named.